The roses on my desk were the color of fresh blood, and the card tucked between the thorns proved someone had been inside Dominic Rinaldi's building. Long enough to know I took my coffee black, wore gray on Tuesdays, and left through the east lobby at exactly 6:15. "Who sent you flowers, Harper?" His voice cut through the air behind me like a blade. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. My fingers were still holding the card, and my brain was stuck on the impossible specificity of the message. For the woman in gray who takes the east exit. Soon. "I don't know," I said. Dominic Rinaldi moved into my peripheral vision, and the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. He was tall, dark-suited, and completely still in the way apex predators are still before they strike. "You don't know," he repeated. His tone suggested I'd just told him the sun rose in the west. His gaze flicked to the roses like they'd personally offended him. "No." I set the card down carefully, like it might explode. "I don't get flowers. I don't date. I don't have time for— Someone knows your schedule down to the minute." He picked up the card between 2 fingers, reading it with the kind of focus most people reserve for contracts. "Someone knows which door you use, what you wear, what you drink." My stomach twisted. It came through the lobby, the delivery service, bypassed 3 checkpoints, 2 security scans, and made it to the 42nd floor without a signature or a logged vendor ID. His eyes lifted to mine, and they were the color of smoke before a fire. "That's not romance, Miss Quinn. That's a breach." The way he said breach made my mouth go dry. 8 months at Rinaldi Holdings was enough to learn 2 things. The building didn't make mistakes, and Dominic Rinaldi didn't forgive them. The men who used the private elevator to floors that weren't on the directory didn't smile, didn't chat, and didn't leave loose ends behind. When something went wrong in his world, it got erased. "I'll call security," I managed. "I am security." He was already moving toward my computer, his hand gesturing for me to unlock it. "Open your calendar, every access point, now." I should have argued. Should have reminded him that I was his executive assistant, not his property, and that my personal schedule wasn't his business. But my younger brother's face flashed through my mind. 17 years old, senior year at Dalton Ridge Academy, waiting for me to confirm that this semester's tuition had cleared. And I unlocked the screen. Dominic leaned over my shoulder, close enough that I could smell expensive cologne and something darker underneath. His hand moved the mouse, clicking through my synced calendar with the precision of someone who knew exactly what he was looking for. "Who has access to this?" "The executive team, your assistant, IT. Names." I rattled them off. He didn't write anything down. Didn't need to. I learned quickly that Dominic Rinaldi forgot nothing. "Vendor deliveries?" he asked. "Log through the main system. I don't handle those directly. You handle my schedule. That means you see when I'm exposed, when I'm distracted, when I'm out of the building." His gaze cut to me, sharp enough to draw blood. "That makes you a vulnerability, Miss Quinn." The words hit like a slap. I know." He straightened, and the space between us felt like a live wire. "If you'd sold information, you'd be better at covering your tracks. This isn't you. This is someone using you." Relief and terror hit at the same time. "Then you'll stay close until I find out who." It wasn't a question, wasn't a request. "Mr. Rinaldi, Dominic." He said it like a correction, like we'd just crossed a line I hadn't seen coming. "And before you tell me you can handle this yourself, let me be clear. Someone bypassed my security to get to you. That means they have resources, patience, and a reason. You don't have any of those things." My jaw tightened. "I have a job, a life, a brother finishing his senior year at Dalton," he said quietly. "Full tuition, room and board. You're his legal guardian. $48,000 a year, and you're 60 days from default if you miss another payment." The air left my lungs. "How?" "I know everything about everyone who works for me, Harper. Especially the ones I actually trust." Trust. The word snagged in my brain. And suddenly I was back in this morning's crisis, 3 hours before the roses arrived. Dominic had been in the executive boardroom with the acquisition team when I'd noticed the problem. His calendar showed a 10 o'clock meeting with the Castellano Group. Old money, Italian shipping. The kind of clients who expected precision and took insults personally. The problem was that Castellano's lawyer had sent a confirmation email for 9:30, 30 minutes early. In Dominic's world, that wasn't a miscommunication. It was a test. I'd caught it at 8:45 while cross-referencing his schedule against incoming correspondence, something his previous assistant had never bothered to do. By 9, I'd had the conference room reset, catering moved up, and security notified of the early arrival. By 9:15, I'd walked into the boardroom where Dominic was reviewing acquisition terms. Mr. Rinaldi. He'd looked up, and the room had gone silent. You didn't interrupt Dominic Rinaldi unless the building was on fire. The Castellano meeting, I'd said. They're arriving at 9:30, not 10. Their lawyer confirmed it last night. One of the senior partners had started to argue. The calendar clearly says. The calendar is wrong. I'd pulled up the email on my tablet, walked it directly to Dominic. Castellano's team sent this confirmation 18 hours ago. If we're not ready when they arrive, they'll assume we're not serious about the contract. Dominic had read the email. Then he'd looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite name. How long have we been unprepared? We're not. I moved everything up an hour ago. The room is ready. Catering's in place. Security has their names. The silence had been deafening. Then Dominic had stood, buttoned his jacket, and said, Gentlemen, we have 20 minutes. As the room had emptied, he'd stopped next to me in the doorway. You could have let me walk into that. No, I'd said. I couldn't. Something had shifted in his expression. Why not? Because my job is to make sure you never have to. He'd studied me for a long moment. Then, what's your brother's name? The question had caught me off guard. Ryan. Why? Because I want to know the name of the person you're working this hard for. Then he'd walked away, leaving me standing there with my heart doing something I couldn't afford. Harper, Dominic's voice snapped me back to the present. He was watching me with an intensity that made my skin feel too tight. You left, he said. I was thinking about this morning. The Castellano meeting. Of course he knew exactly where my mind had gone. You saved me from walking into an ambush, he continued, his voice quiet. You saw a trap no one else caught. That's why I trust you. His jaw tightened. And that's why someone using you to get to me is not something I'm going to tolerate. The weight of that settled over me like a shroud. You're not in trouble, he said, and his voice had softened just a fraction. But you are in danger, and until I know why, you're staying where I can see you. It's not negotiable. He pulled out his phone, typed something fast. Owen Hale is my head of security. He'll be here in 3 minutes. You're going to walk him through every delivery, every visitor, every person who's looked at you twice in the last month. And if I refuse, Dominic's smile was slow and cold. Then you're not as smart as I thought you were. He turned toward the door, and I should have let him go. Should have nodded and played along and kept my head down the way I had for 8 months. Instead, I heard myself say, What do I get? He stopped, turned. Excuse me? My heart was hammering, but I kept my voice steady. You're asking me to give you access to my life, my routine, my privacy. What do I get in return? For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then something shifted in his expression, something that might have been approval. What do you want? My brother's tuition covered, all of it. Through graduation and his first year of college if he gets an early admission. I swallowed. And a written exit clause. If I help you find this person, I get to walk away clean. No scandal, no blacklist, no questions. You think you're in a position to negotiate? I think I'm the only person in this building who can tell you which vendor has access to executive floor deliveries, which scheduler syncs with mine, and who asked me last week if you had any allergies. I held his gaze. You need me, so yes, I'm negotiating. The silence stretched. Then Dominic crossed back to my desk in 3 strides, pulled a business card from his pocket, and scrawled something on the back. My lawyer. He'll have the terms drafted by end of day. He set the card down next to the roses. Your brother's tuition payment is due Friday. It's handled. Owen will be here in 2 minutes. Don't leave this floor without clearance. He was gone before I could respond. I stood there, staring at the card, at the roses, at the message that proved someone had been watching me long enough to know things I barely admitted to myself. And I realized, too late, that I'd just made a deal with the most dangerous man in New York. The door opened. Owen Hale stepped inside. He was built like a wall, with the kind of face that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. His eyes swept the roses, the card, and finally landed on me. Miss Quinn. He pulled out a tablet. Let's start with the delivery timestamp and work backward. I glanced at the roses one more time. The words soon stared back at me, and I wondered what exactly I'd just agreed to protect myself from. Owen Hale didn't waste time on small talk. He pulled a chair up to my desk, set his tablet between us, and opened a file that showed the building's security footage from this morning. Owen scrubbed straight to the delivery window. The flowers were delivered by a service called Elite Botanicals, he said. They handle high-end corporate arrangements, paid through a shell account, cryptocurrency, no client name. My stomach dropped. That's not normal. No. His eyes were sharp, assessing. Walk me through your morning. What time did you arrive, and when did you first see the flowers? Got here at 7:30. The flowers weren't on my desk then. I was in the executive boardroom from 8:30 to 10, handling the Castellano meeting setup. When I came back at 10:15, they were there. 90-minute window. Owen pulled up security footage. Delivery man badged through at 9:03 using vendor services credentials. The problem is, that badge was reported stolen 3 weeks ago. The floor seemed to tilt under me. So someone's been planning this. For at least 3 weeks, Owen confirmed. Someone chose you specifically, studied your routine, acquired access, and timed the delivery for when you'd be away from your desk. He leaned forward. The question is why you, and why now? I thought about the Castellano meeting, about how Dominic had looked at me afterward like he was seeing me for the first time. What if it's not about me, I said slowly. What if I'm just the access point? I manage Dominic's schedule. I see when he's vulnerable, when he's distracted. If someone wanted to map his patterns, watching me would tell them exactly when to strike. Something shifted in Owen's expression. That's sharp thinking, Miss Quinn. Which brings me to my next question. Your brother, Ryan Quinn. 17, Dalton Ridge. Academy. If someone's using you as leverage, he becomes a target. The fear was immediate, visceral. What do we do? I'll position a security detail as campus safety consultants. 2-person rotation, discreet monitoring. He won't know they're there unless something goes wrong. Owen was already typing. But you need to understand, you're not just his assistant anymore. You're an asset under active protection. That means proximity to Mr. Rinaldi, restricted access, and controlled movement. For how long? Until we identify the threat. Owen stood. You're being moved to the 45th floor, executive wing. Your badge is being updated now. Pack what you need from this desk. He left before I could argue. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your new desk is on the 45th floor, executive wing. Owen will escort you up in 15 minutes. Bring only what you need. Dr. I stared at the message. The 45th floor was steel, glass, and silence. The kind that came from power so absolute it didn't need to announce itself. Owen badged us through security requiring fingerprint and retinal scan, then led me to an office marked Operations. Inside, clean desk, dual monitors, phone console. One wall was entirely glass, offering a direct view into the office next door, Dominic's office. I could see him on the phone, pacing, intensity rolling off him in waves. One-way glass, Owen said. You see him, he can't see you. Red button on your phone gives you direct access, under 5 seconds. He paused. You're not just his assistant now, Miss Quinn. You're under his protection. That means something in this city. Don't make him regret it. Owen left, and I sat at my new desk. A security badge waited. Executive protection, level 5. Through the glass, Dominic turned, looking directly at where I sat. Even though he couldn't see me, I felt the weight of his attention. 3 hours ago, I'd been trying to stay invisible. Now I was 40 feet from the most dangerous man in Manhattan, and he'd just made me his responsibility. My phone rang at 1:30. Conference room C, now, Dominic's voice was clipped. We have a problem. Conference room C was 3 doors down. Inside, Dominic stood at the head of the table, Owen beside him. Between them, a laptop displayed surveillance photos. Me, walking out of the building yesterday, getting coffee this morning, entering the lobby at 7:30. Uploaded to a private server an hour ago, Dominic said. His hands were braced on the table like he was holding himself back from violence. Someone's been documenting your movements for at least 3 days. My mouth went dry. Where did you find these? Owen traced the Shell account from the flowers, led to a server hosting these. Dominic's eyes met mine, storm dark. This isn't random, Harper. This is targeted surveillance. Every photo was taken when Mr. Rinaldi was out of the office or occupied, Owen added. Whoever's watching you knows. His schedule as well as yours. I stared at the images, my mind racing. Then something caught my attention. Zoom in on the coffee cart photo. Owen enlarged it. In the reflection of the window behind me, a black sedan. Look at yesterday's exit photo. Same vehicle. Owen pulled it up. The sedan again, different position. Someone was sitting in that car, I said. That's where the photos were taken from. A stationary surveillance position with clear sightlines to my roots. The room went silent. Owen was already working to isolate the reflection. I was focused on metadata and timestamps. Missed the physical setup. That's good work, Miss Quinn. Dominic was staring at me with an intensity that made my skin feel too tight. Can you trace it? I asked. If I can pull the plate from the reflection, yes. Owen adjusted the image. Give me 10 minutes. Harper, Dominic gestured to the hallway. Outside. I followed him to the windows overlooking the city. You just found evidence my security expert missed, he said quietly. Owen was looking at data. I was looking at the picture. That's not luck. That's skill. He turned to face me. I thought I was protecting a vulnerability. Now I'm realizing you're a weapon I didn't know I had. I'm not a weapon, Dominic. I'm a person who notices details. In my world, that's the same thing. His gaze held mine. The people watching you just made a mistake. They assumed you were weak. They're about to learn otherwise. Before I could respond, Owen appeared. Got the plate. Car service. Legitimate company. Rental paid through a shell corporation. Same pattern as the flowers, Dominic said. Professional operation. Well-funded. My phone buzzed. Text from Owen's number. Crest Consulting Group. Mean anything to you? Is that the Shell Corporation? I asked. Owen nodded. I pulled up the Rinaldi Holdings database on my tablet, searching the proposal archive. There. Crest Consulting Group. Proposal declined. March 15th. Reason. Conflict of interest with existing client portfolio. Found him, I said, showing them. Julian Crest submitted a partnership proposal 6 months ago. You declined it. Dominic's face went very still. I remember, he wanted access to our acquisition pipeline. His international investors had ties to money laundering. His voice was flat. I don't let my legitimate empire touch money that drags in federal heat. Owen pulled up files. Julian Crest, former hedge fund manager, boutique advisory firm. After Rinaldi rejected him, 2 major clients pulled out. Significant reputation hit. So he blames you, I said. And he's been planning revenge for 6 months. Dominic's hands clenched. Using you to do it. Owen displayed a photo. Julian Crest, polished, calculated smile, the kind of man who'd learned to be underestimated. If this is personal, Owen said, surveillance is just the opening. He's building toward blackmail or forced negotiation. He thinks compromising me through Harper will bring me back to the table, Dominic said. That's insane, I said. That's desperation. Dominic turned to Owen. I want everything on Crest. Every deal, every client, every move since March. What about Miss Quinn? She stays exactly where she is, under protection. Dominic's eyes met mine. If Crest wants to play games, he's going to learn I don't lose. Owen left, and the conference room felt smaller. This is because you wouldn't compromise, I said quietly. Yes. And I'm not apologizing for having principles. Dominic moved closer. But I won't let someone use you as a weapon against me either. I'm not yours to protect. Aren't you? His voice was quiet, dangerous. You're on my floor, under my security, about to help me hunt the man stalking you. That sounds like mine to me. My heart hammered. That's not, I know exactly what it is. He stepped back. And the only way out is through making Julian Crest regret he ever heard your name. By 4 o'clock, Owen had compiled a devastating file on Julian Crest. Hostile takeovers, smear campaigns, leveraging personal information to force deals, a pattern of escalation and ruthlessness. He's been building toward this since March, Owen said. Lost clients in April, quietly rebuilt infrastructure in July, shell corporations, surveillance setup, mapping vulnerabilities. The flowers were a test, Dominic said. Proof he could breach security and reach Harper. So what's his endgame, I asked. Force you back to the table, Owen said. Use concern for Miss Quinn's safety, or threat of scandal, to make you accept his proposal. That won't happen, Dominic said flatly. Then he'll escalate, Owen warned. Next move will be public, real pressure. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Then, set up a meeting. Tell Crest I want to discuss his proposal. Make it seem like I'm reconsidering. You're walking into his trap, I said slowly. I'm making him think he's won. Dominic's smile was cold. And you're going to be there with me, on my arm, making him believe every assumption he's made about us. My stomach flipped. You want me to pretend I want you to be exactly what he thinks you are. Dominic's voice dropped. Someone I'd burn the world down to protect. The possessiveness should have scared me. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my stomach. When, I asked? Tomorrow night. Neutral location. Public enough that he feels safe. Private enough that we control the environment. His gaze held mine. And by the time we leave that room, Julian Crest will understand exactly how badly he miscalculated. Owen nodded. I'll set it up. He left, and I stood there processing what I'd just agreed to. Harper. Dominic's voice was quieter now. This puts you directly in his line of sight. If you're not comfortable, if you want me to find another way, tell me now. I thought about Ryan, about the tuition that had cleared, about the lines I'd already crossed. I'm in, I said. But I need honesty from you. Is this really just strategy, or is something else happening here? For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, both. The single word hit like a confession. That's what I thought, I said quietly. Does that change anything? I should have said yes, should have drawn boundaries. Instead, ask me again after tomorrow night. Something flashed in his eyes. Relief, hunger, satisfaction. Fair enough. He checked his watch. We need to move you somewhere more secure. My driver's waiting. You'll stay at my residence in Tribeca until this is over. With you? Yes. His voice was steady, unapologetic. With me. The logistics happened fast. By 5:15, Owen reported. Apartment swept and secured, locks changed, security system installed. Phone replaced with encrypted version. Ryan briefed on general security protocols via school counselor. Security detail positioned as campus safety consultants. All of it coordinated while I sat in Dominic's office watching the city darken. Ready? Dominic appeared at 5:30, jacket on, keys in hand. We took the private elevator to the garage. His car was sleek, black, anonymous. The door closed, sealing us in silence as Manhattan slid past tinted windows. How are you doing? He asked after several blocks. I moved into my boss's home because a corporate rival is using me as bait. I looked at him. How do you think? Better than most people would. His gaze was steady. You negotiated, spotted evidence Owen missed, identified our antagonist in 6 hours. That's composure under fire. Or denial. I'll take competent denial over hysteria any day. Despite everything, I almost smiled. The car pulled into a Tribeca garage. The gate closed behind us with finality. Dominic led me to a private entrance. The elevator required a key and code. When the doors opened, I stepped into a space that surprised me completely. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, bookshelves crammed with legal texts and poetry, vinyl collection beside an actual turntable, a kitchen that looked used. This wasn't a showpiece. This was where Dominic Rinaldi lived. Guest room down the hall, he said, shrugging out of his jacket. Bathrooms stocked, kitchens open. If you need anything, ask. I stood there clutching my bag, feeling like I'd stepped off the world's edge. Dominic. He turned. Why are you doing this? For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he crossed the space, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back. Because someone looked at you and saw a way to hurt me, he said quietly. And I don't let that stand. His hand came up, and for one breathless second I thought he might touch me. Instead, he reached past me and flipped a light switch, illuminating the hallway. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be long. Then he walked away, leaving me standing in his home, my heart racing. I headed for the guest room and sat on the bed. My phone buzzed. Ryan, tuition confirmed. Whatever you did, thank you. Love you. I stared at the message, tears pricking my eyes. I'd done what I had to. I just hoped I'd survive it. I didn't sleep. At midnight, I gave up and padded into the kitchen for water. Dominic stood in the doorway to a home office, still dressed, sleeves rolled. He held a tumbler of something amber. Can't sleep? He asked. Can you? Not lately. He set his glass down. Pull up those surveillance photos. I blinked. Now? Something's been bothering me about them, he gestured. Show me the coffee cart one. I pulled it up. He leaned over my shoulder. Zoom in on the window reflection. The black sedan was visible, partially obscured. The camera's shooting from the passenger side, I said slowly, which means at least 2 people in that car, one driving, one photographing. His voice was grim. Crest isn't working alone. That changes things. It means coordination, division of labor. The person at tomorrow's meeting might not be the photographer. He straightened. Owen missed that because he was focused on metadata. You caught it because you see patterns. So what do? We assume Crest has a team. We prepare for multiple angles. His eyes met mine. And we make sure tomorrow night you know exactly what's real and what's strategy. My pulse kicked. What do you mean? I mean Crest is going to look at us and try to figure out what we are. He'll watch for tells, for weaknesses. Dominic's voice dropped. So I need you to know that what's happening between us, whatever this is, it's real. Not just strategy, not just protection. Real. The air left my lungs. Dominic, you don't have to say anything, but I'm not going to pretend this is just business. He was closer now. Tomorrow, Crest is going to see exactly what I want him to see. That you matter. That you're under my protection. That touching you is the last mistake anyone makes. And after tomorrow? After tomorrow, you decide what happens next. His gaze held mine. But until then, trust me. And if something feels wrong, if Crest says or does something that makes you uncomfortable, you walk away. You let me handle it. I'm not some fragile thing that needs protecting. I know. You're the woman who negotiated terms on a crumbling ledge, who spotted evidence professionals missed. Something flashed in his eyes. But you're also in my home, under my protection, about to walk into a situation designed to hurt you. So yes, Harper. For tomorrow, you let me protect you, and then we'll figure out the rest. I should have argued. Should have reminded him I didn't belong to anyone. But standing in his kitchen at midnight, city lights casting shadows across his face, all I could manage was, okay. Relief flickered across his features. Get some sleep. We start at 7. This time I did go back to the guest room, but sleep still didn't come. Because Dominic Rinaldi had just told me I mattered. And tomorrow, we were going to make his enemy believe it too. 7 a.m. came with coffee already brewing, and Dominic standing at the kitchen island, reviewing something on his tablet. Owen confirmed the meeting, he said, without looking up. 8 p.m. tonight. The Aurelius Club in Midtown. Private dining room. Owen already looped in a federal contact. If Crest incriminated himself in the room, agents would be on standby in the hallway. I poured coffee, my hands steadier than I expected. What's the play? We arrived together. You're introduced as my operations director, true enough to be believable, vague enough to let him draw conclusions. Dominic looked up. He'll test boundaries, push to see how close we are, what leverage he has. Stay calm, watch him carefully, and if you catch anything I miss, signal me. Signal you how? You'll know. His mouth curved slightly. You're good at seeing what others don't. Use that. And if he threatens Ryan directly? Owen has a team on your brother. If Crest mentions his name, we'll know he's crossed from corporate warfare into criminal territory. Dominic's voice went cold. That's when this becomes a different kind of problem. What kind? The kind that ends with federal investigators and arrest warrants. The certainty in his voice should have unsettled me. Instead, it felt like protection. The dress arrived at noon. Charcoal silk, fitted but elegant, with a neckline that suggested power rather than seduction. I showered, dried my hair, applied minimal makeup. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked like someone who belonged on Dominic Rinaldi's arm, someone worth going to war over. I emerged from the guest room at 6:30. Dominic was in the living area, dressed in a dark suit, reviewing documents. His eyes tracked over me, and something in his expression shifted. "Perfect," he said quietly. "I feel like I'm going into battle." "You are." He set the papers down, crossing to me. "Harper, once we're in that room, Crest will say things designed to provoke. He'll imply things about us, about you, about what he thinks this is. Don't defend yourself. Don't explain. Just watch him. He'll give something away. They always do when they think they're winning. You want me to read him. I want you to do what you do best. See the pattern." His hand came up, hovering near my face before dropping. "And trust that whatever he says, whatever he implies, I meant every word I said last night." My pulse kicked. "Dominic, we should go. Traffic will be heavy." He was already moving toward the door, and I wondered if he was running from the conversation or from the way the air between us had gone electric. The car ride started in silence. Manhattan slid past the tinted windows, and I watched Dominic's reflection in the glass, the tight set of his jaw, the way his hand kept flexing and releasing on his thigh. "You're nervous," I said. "I'm never nervous. You're something." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'm concerned I've miscalculated. The leverage, the treasury files, you." He turned to face me fully. "I'm concerned that bringing you into this, putting you in a room with a man who's been watching you, who thinks you're a weakness he can exploit. I'm concerned I've put you at risk to prove a point." "What point?" "That you matter." His voice was rough. "That someone threatening you is a line no one crosses. That you're not just—" He stopped. "Not just what?" "Not just someone I work with. Not just someone competent and brilliant who happens to be in my orbit." His eyes locked on mine. 8 months ago, your second day, you reorganized the entire executive scheduling system. You didn't ask permission. You saw a problem and fixed it. I stood in my office and watched you work and thought, she's going to be trouble. My breath caught. Trouble? Because I knew even then that you were the kind of person I couldn't afford to notice, the kind who would get under my skin if I let myself pay attention. His hand moved to the seat between us, close to mine, but not touching. So I didn't. I kept you at assistant level, kept professional distance, told myself it was better that way. Why? Because I don't mix business with personal. Because people in my world use relationships as weapons. Because keeping you at a distance was the only way to keep you safe from the kind of attention we're walking into right now. His jaw tightened. And then Julian Crest sent you flowers, and I realized I'd been lying to myself for 8 months about what you meant to me. The words hit like a confession. So this isn't just strategy, I said quietly. This isn't just about setting a trap for Crest. No. His voice was barely above a whisper. This is about the fact that when I saw those surveillance photos, my first thought wasn't about the security breach or the corporate threat. It was that someone had been watching you, studying you, planning something that would hurt you. And I wanted to burn everything to the ground to stop it. Dominic, I need you to know that before we walk into that room. He shifted closer, and suddenly the space between us felt impossibly small. Because Crest is going to look at us and try to figure out what leverage he has. And he's going to realize very quickly that the answer is everything. You're everything. And that terrifies me more than any corporate warfare ever could. My heart was hammering. I don't know what to say. Say you believe me. Say that when he calls you a transaction, or implies you're convenient, or tries to make you doubt this. Say you'll remember this moment and know he's wrong. I looked at him, at the intensity in his eyes, at the way his control was fracturing around the edges, at the vulnerability he was offering me like a weapon I could use against him. "I believe you," I whispered. Something broke in his expression. "Thank God." Then his hand came up, cupping my face, and his mouth was on mine. The kiss was different from what I'd imagined in quiet moments when I'd let myself wonder. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was fierce and desperate and raw, like he was trying to prove with his body what words hadn't conveyed. I made a sound I didn't recognize, and his hand slid into my hair, angling my head, deepening the kiss until I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't remember why this was supposed to be a bad idea. My hands found the front of his shirt, fisting in the fabric, pulling him closer. His other hand moved to my waist, fingers digging in, and I felt him shudder when I bit his lower lip. "Harper," my name was a growl against my mouth. "We have to stop." "Why?" "Because we're 3 blocks from the Aurelius Club. And if we don't stop now, I'm going to tell my driver to take us home and let Julian Crest wait until tomorrow." The words sent heat pooling low in my stomach, but I forced myself to pull back, to breathe, to remember that we had a battle to win. "Later," I managed. "Later," he agreed, his voice rough. "After we've destroyed him. After I've shown him exactly how badly he's miscalculated. After, I interrupted, pressing one more quick kiss to his mouth. "Let's go to war first. Then we'll figure out the rest." His smile was sharp and hungry. Together. The car pulled up to the club entrance. Dominic's hand found mine, squeezing once before releasing. "Ready?" I thought about the kiss still burning on my lips, about the confession that had just rewritten everything between us, about the fact that I was about to walk into a room with a man who'd been watching me for weeks. "Yes," I said. "Let's end this." The Aurelius Club was all dark wood, leather, and old money. Dominic's hand settled at the small of my back, as we were led through the main dining room toward a private space in the rear. I could feel eyes following us, the weight of recognition, speculation, curiosity. The door opened. Julian Crest stood as we entered, and I saw him for the first time in person. He was exactly as handsome as his photo suggested. Sharp suit, calculated smile. But there was something cold in his eyes that the polish couldn't hide, something predatory. "Dominic." He extended a hand. "Thank you for reconsidering." "Julian." Dominic's handshake was brief. "This is Harper Quinn, my operations director." Crest's attention shifted to me, and I felt his assessment like a physical touch. "Miss Quinn." He took my hand, holding it a fraction too long. "I've heard impressive things about Rinaldi Holdings' operational efficiency. I didn't realize the secret was in the personnel." I extracted my hand smoothly, watching his face. There, a flicker of something when I pulled away. Annoyance, calculation. "Mr. Crest," I kept my voice neutral. "I understand you're interested in discussing partnership opportunities. Among other things." His smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Please sit." The private dining room was intimate. Table for 4 with 3 places set. Wine already open, 2 glasses poured. Dominic pulled out my chair. I sat, and he took the seat beside me, close enough that our shoulders nearly touched. Crest noticed. Of course he noticed. "I was surprised to get your call," Crest said, settling across from us. "When you rejected my proposal in March, I got the impression the door was permanently closed." "Circumstances changed," Dominic said evenly. "And what's changed exactly?" Dominic's hand moved to the table, close enough to mine that our fingers nearly touched. "I've had time to reconsider the value of strategic partnerships." "I see." Crest's eyes flicked between us. "Strategic partnerships can be complicated, especially when personal considerations become involved." Here we go, I thought. The probing, the testing. "My personal considerations are none of your concern," Dominic said flatly. "Of course not," Crest lifted his wine glass. "But I couldn't help noticing Miss Quinn's recent elevation. Operations director is quite a promotion for someone who was, an executive assistant until very recently." I felt Dominic tense beside me, but I spoke first. "Actually, Mr. Crest, I've been managing operations at Rinaldi Holdings for 8 months. The title just made it official." I tilted my head slightly. "But you already knew that. Your research has been very thorough." Something flickered in his expression. surprised that I'd acknowledged the surveillance directly. Research is standard business practice, he said smoothly. So is knowing when someone's overplaying their hand. I held his gaze. You asked what's changed. I can tell you what hasn't. Mr. Rinaldi's standards, his ethics, his unwillingness to compromise on either. Crest's smile thinned. Ethics are expensive, Miss Quinn. Only if you're doing business with people who don't value them. Touché. He leaned back, studying me with new interest. You're more than decorative. I respect that. I'm not here to earn your respect, I said quietly. I'm here because Mr. Rinaldi asked me to sit in on this meeting, as his operations director. So perhaps we should discuss the actual proposal instead of my qualifications. Dominic's hand shifted on the table, his pinky finger brushing mine. A signal of approval so subtle Crest couldn't see it, but I felt it. Of course, Crest pulled out a folder. My original proposal outlined a partnership structure that would give Rinaldi Holdings access to international investment capital, while providing my clients with premium real estate opportunities. The terms are irrelevant, Dominic interrupted, because I didn't come here to accept your proposal, Julian. I came here to give you a choice. Crest's expression froze. Excuse me, I lied. Dominic pulled out his phone, sliding it across the table. Owen Hale sends his regards. That's a list of every shell corporation you've used in the past 6 months. 3 are flagged by Treasury for suspicious activity. 2 route through accounts tied to known money laundering operations. The color drained from Crest's face. I watched him carefully, cataloging his reactions. The way his left hand clenched under the table, the micro-expression of rage before he schooled his features, the way his eyes darted to the door for a split second. He was calculating an exit strategy. You have 2 choices, Dominic continued, his voice cold. Walk away from whatever you've been planning. Dissolve your surveillance operation. Never come near Harper again. Or I hand this file to federal investigators. Crest's gaze snapped to me, and I saw something ugly flash across his face. You think you're special. His voice was quiet, venomous. You think you matter to him. You're a transaction, Miss Quinn. A convenience. 6 months from now, you'll be replaced by the next assistant who catches his attention. The words were designed to cut, but I was watching his right hand, which had moved to his phone on the table. You're texting someone, I said quietly. Both men looked at me. Right now, under the table, your right thumb is moving. I met Crest's eyes. Who are you signaling? His face went white, then red. That's insurance, I finished. A backup plan? Someone waiting for your signal to do something you can't take back? I leaned forward. Mr. Crest, I've spent 8 months managing crisis logistics for Rinaldi Holdings. I know what panic looks like, and I know what a contingency plan looks like. So I'll ask again. Who did you just signal, and what are they supposed to do? Crest stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. This meeting is over. Sit down, Dominic said, his voice like iron. I don't take orders from you. You will if you want to walk out of here without a federal investigation starting in the next 30 seconds. Dominic stood, towering over him. Harper asked you a question. Answer it. Crest's hands were shaking. Rage or fear, I couldn't tell. You destroyed my reputation, he said, voice raw. You rejected my proposal, and 2 of my biggest clients followed your lead. You blacklisted me without even realizing it. Because when Dominic Rinaldi says no, everyone else assumes there's a reason. There was a reason, Dominic said flatly. Your investors were criminals. They were opportunities, Crest's control snapped. And you took them from me because you're too self-righteous to understand how business actually works. So yes, I've been watching her. Yes, I sent flowers and photos, and made sure you knew I could get close whenever I wanted. Because I wanted you to understand what it feels like to have something valuable threatened. So this was always about revenge, I said quietly, not business. It was about making him pay attention, Crest's voice rose. Making him come back to the table, making him realize he made a mistake rejecting me. By stalking my operations director, Dominic's voice was lethal. By threatening her. I never threatened. You hired someone to photograph her for weeks. You sent her flowers with details that proved inside access. You set up this entire meeting as a power play. Dominic stepped around the table, and Crest backed up. And 10 seconds ago, you texted someone with instructions I'm betting you're already regretting. So I'm going to ask one more time. Who did you signal, and what are they doing? Crest's mouth opened, closed. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at it, and whatever he saw made his face go gray. What is it? I asked. He didn't answer. Dominic grabbed the phone, read the screen, and his expression went arctic. Harper, outside, now. The tone in his voice made my blood freeze. What, now? In the hallway, Dominic's hand was already on his phone, Owen's name on the screen. Talk to me, he said, without preamble. I couldn't hear Owen's response, but I watched Dominic's face go from fury to something colder. How long ago? A pause. Where's Ryan now? Another pause. Keep him there. We're 20 minutes out. He hung up and looked at me. Someone attempted to access Ryan's dorm room 30 minutes ago. Dalton security intercepted before entry was gained. Ryan's fine. He's with the dean. Owen's team was monitoring external access points. The breach came from inside. Someone already on campus with legitimate credentials. My vision blurred at the edges. Inside job. Crest bought someone at Dalton. Dominic's voice was flat, deadly. That text he just sent? It was supposed to be the go-ahead signal. Instead, Owen's team caught the message and already had campus security waiting. So Ryan's safe. Ryan's safe. His hand cupped my face. But Crest just crossed from corporate warfare into threatening a minor. That's criminal. That's arrest warrants and federal charges and the end of everything he's built. Good. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. You spotted the signal, the text. If you hadn't caught that. But I did. I grabbed his wrist. We caught it. Together. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. Together. His phone buzzed. Owen, NYPD and FBI both want him. Your call on who gets him first. Dominic showed me the screen. Your call, he said quietly. He came after your brother. You decide how this ends. I thought about Ryan, scared in his dorm room. About the weeks of surveillance, the flowers, the photos. About Crest's ugly words, transaction, convenience, replaceable. About the fact that Dominic had given me the choice. FBI, I said. Federal charges for wire fraud, money laundering, and whatever else they can prove. I want him buried so deep he never sees daylight again. Dominic's smile was cold and satisfied. Done. He typed a response, then turned back toward the private dining room. Crest was still inside, standing by the window, his phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline. It's over, Julian, Dominic said from the doorway. Crest spun. What? The person you signaled. Owen's team intercepted them. Campus security has them in custody. And the FBI is very interested in your shell corporations, your surveillance operation, and your attempt to coerce a federal investigation subject through threats against a minor. I didn't. You texted someone at Dalton 30 minutes ago. That message is evidence. And even if you try to claim it was unrelated, I have recordings of this entire conversation, including the part where you admitted to stalking Harper and setting up this meeting as a power play. Dominic's voice was ice. You're done. Crest's face crumpled. You're destroying me. No, you destroyed yourself. Dominic moved to stand beside me, his hand finding mine. I rejected a business proposal. You chose to make it personal. You chose to threaten someone under my protection. You chose to cross every legal and ethical line because you couldn't handle being told no. His grip on my hand tightened. And now you get to live with those choices. Footsteps in the hallway, heavy, official. 2 men in suits appeared. FBI, based on the badges. Julian Crest, the first one said. Crest looked at them, at us, at the ruins of everything he'd built. She's not worth it, he said, his voice breaking. Whatever you think she is, she's not worth burning every bridge. Dominic's arm slid around my waist, pulling me close. That's where you're wrong, he said quietly. She's worth every bridge I'd burn, every enemy I'd make, every consequence that comes. His eyes locked on Crest. And the fact that you can't understand that is exactly why you'll never be more than a second-rate operator playing in a game you don't have the spine for. The FBI agents moved forward, and Crest didn't resist. As they led him past us, he looked at me one last time. I met his gaze and said nothing. There was nothing left to say. We didn't speak in the elevator, not in the lobby, not in the car. But Dominic's hand never left mine, and when the car door closed behind us, sealing us in leather-scented silence, he pulled me across the seat and into his lap. "You were magnificent," he said roughly, his hands framing my face. "You caught his signal. You called him out. You made the choice that ended him. We did it together." "No." His forehead pressed against mine. "You did that. You saw what I missed. You're not someone I protect, Harper. You're the reason I win." Then his mouth was on mine again, and this time there was no restraint, no strategy, just heat and hunger and the desperate need to prove we were both still standing, still whole, still alive. My hand slid into his hair and he groaned against my lips. "Take us home," he said without breaking the kiss, his voice rough with need. The car started moving, and I didn't care where. I just knew that wherever Dominic Rinaldi was, that's where I wanted to be. We barely made it through the door of his loft. He backed me into the wall, mouth finding mine like he'd been starving, and I let him, hands fisting in his shirt, dragging him closer until I couldn't tell where my breath ended and his began. "Harper," he rasped against my lips, control fraying at the edges. "Tell me you want this." I held his gaze, no fear, no flinching. "I want this," I said, voice shaking anyway. "I want you." Something in him snapped tight, restraint, not violence, and his hand slid to my waist, anchoring me there like a claim he didn't have to announce. "We do this," he murmured at my throat, "and everything changes." "Everything already changed," I breathed, tugging his tie loose just enough to make him inhale like it hurt. "The moment you kissed me, the moment you gave me the choice, the moment you made me believe I mattered." His forehead touched mine, a single beat of stillness. "You matter," he said, rough and certain. "More than anything." He took my hand and led me deeper into the loft, away from the windows, away from the city, like he was taking me somewhere only he was allowed to follow. A door clicked softly behind us, and the world narrowed to heat, breath, and the promise of morning. Later, much later, I lay in his arms, wearing his shirt, watching the city lights paint patterns across the ceiling. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. "Now we wait for the FBI to formally charge Crest. Owen's monitoring everything. If there's any retaliation attempt, we'll know." His arm tightened around me. "But I don't think there will be. Crest is done. He knows it." "That's not what I meant." "I know." He shifted, propping himself up to look at me. "You want to know what we are, what this means, whether tomorrow we go back to some version of professional distance. Do we?" "No." His hand came up, tracing my jawline. "We don't. I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen or that it was just adrenaline or strategy. I'm not going to let you go back to being invisible or undervalued or anything less than exactly what you are." "Which is?" "My partner." His voice was rough with emotion. "In every sense of the word, business and personal and everything in between. If you want that. If you're willing to navigate the complications and the questions and the fact that everyone's going to have an opinion about us. And if I am, then tomorrow we start building something real. Not just surviving a threat, not just winning a battle, but actually building a life where you're seen and valued and irreplaceable." I pulled him down and kissed him, slow and deep and certain. "Then let's start building," I whispered. And for the first time in 8 months, I felt like I'd finally stepped into the light. Dawn came too early and not early enough. I woke in Dominic's bed, his arm around me, my body still humming from everything that had happened in the dark. For a moment, I let myself stay there, warm, safe, wanted. Then reality crashed back. Ryan. I slipped out of bed, found my phone, and saw 3 texts from Dean Morrison. "Ryan is secure and resting. No harm done. We've increased security protocols campus-wide. The individual in custody has been turned over to FBI. Campus police report filed. Please call when you're available to discuss Ryan's return to regular schedule." Relief flooded through me so fast my knees went weak. "He's okay?" I turned. Dominic stood in the doorway, wearing only sleep pants, his hair disheveled, his eyes alert despite the early hour. "He's okay," I confirmed. Dean Morrison says he's resting. Security protocols updated. Good, he crossed to me, pulling me against his chest. Owen's team will stay on campus through the end of the semester, discreet but present. And I'm having our legal team review Dalton's security contractor. If Crest could buy access that easily, there are gaps that need closing. I pulled back to look at him. You're going to fix their entire security system. I'm going to make sure no one can get close to your brother again. His voice was matter-of-fact, like this was obvious. That's not negotiable, Harper. Dominic, I know what you're going to say. That Ryan's not my responsibility. That you can handle your own family's security. That I'm overstepping. His hand cupped my face. But he matters to you, which means he matters to me. So yes, I'm fixing Dalton's security. And yes, I'm keeping Owen's team on campus. And no, I'm not asking permission. I should have argued. Should have reminded him about boundaries and autonomy and not steamrolling into my life. Instead, I said, "Thank you." Something softened in his expression. "You're welcome." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. "What?" "Owen. He needs to debrief us on something." He typed a response. "He'll be here in 20 minutes. Should I be worried?" Probably not, but with Owen you never know. 20 minutes later, we sat at Dominic's kitchen island, coffee, daylight, and the surreal feeling of drinking breakfast with my former boss who was now, what? Lover? Partner? Something without a name yet. Owen arrived precisely on time, looking like he'd been awake for hours. "Mr. Rinaldi, Miss Quinn." He set his tablet on the counter. "Crest is in federal custody. Initial charges include wire fraud, conspiracy to commit identity theft, unlawful surveillance, and attempted coercion of a witness. The U.S. Attorney is considering additional charges related to the money laundering flags." "Good," Dominic said. "There's more." Owen pulled up a document. "Crest's legal team made contact overnight. They want to negotiate." I blinked. "Negotiate what?" "A deal. Crest provides information on his international investors, names, account details, transaction records, in exchange for reduced charges and a plea agreement." Dominic's expression went cold. "No. Sir, the U.S. Attorney is interested. Those investors have been on Treasury's radar for years. Crest could provide evidence that—" I said no. Dominic's voice was flat, absolute. "Crest doesn't get to threaten Harper, stalk her for weeks, attempt to access her brother's dorm room, and then negotiate his way out of consequences." Owen was quiet for a moment. "The U.S. Attorney may make the deal regardless of our objection. Then I'll make it clear that Rinaldi Holdings will not cooperate with any investigation that gives Crest leniency. No documents, no testimony, no access to our records of his proposal or our reasons for rejection." "That cooperation could be valuable to your reputation," Owen said carefully. "Positioning yourself as someone who assisted federal investigators in taking down money launderers, that's good press, good business." "I don't care." Dominic's gaze cut to me. "Harper's safety and peace of mind are worth more than good press." My chest tightened. Owen followed Dominic's look, and something shifted in his expression, understanding, maybe approval. "Understood, sir. I'll communicate your position to the U.S. Attorney's office." "Do that." Dominic stood. "And Owen, make sure they understand this isn't a negotiation. Crest gets maximum charges, or I become their least cooperative witness." Owen nodded and left. When the door closed, I turned to Dominic. "You just turned down a reputation boost and federal goodwill because you don't want Crest getting a plea deal." "Yes. That's going to cost you." "Probably." He met my eyes. "Worth it." "Why?" "Because you asked me once what you get from this arrangement. And I told you protection, resources, partnership." He moved closer. "But what I didn't say is that you also get someone who will choose you over profit, over reputation, over strategic advantage. Every time. Without question." The words hit like a physical thing. "Dominic, I know it sounds extreme. I know it's not rational business strategy. But when Owen said Crest might get a deal, all I could think was that he'd be out in 5 years instead of 20. That he'd still be in the world, still able to think about you, maybe still obsessed enough to try again." His jaw tightened. And I decided right then that I'd burn every bridge with the Justice Department before I let that happen. You're choosing me over a federal relationship. I'm choosing you over everything. His voice was rough. That's what I'm trying to tell you, Harper. When it comes to you versus anything else, business, reputation, strategic partnerships, whatever, you win. Every time. That's the deal. My heart was hammering. That's too much pressure. It's not pressure, it's a fact. He took my hands. And I need you to understand that before we talk about what happens next. What does happen next? That depends on what you want. We spent the morning at Dalton. Dominic insisted on coming, and I didn't have the energy to argue. His driver took us to campus, and Dean Morrison met us at the administrative building. Miss Quinn, Mr. Rinaldi. Morrison's surprise at seeing Dominic was barely concealed. Thank you for coming. How's Ryan? I asked. Shaken but resilient. He's asked to see you. Morrison hesitated. The individual who attempted access has been identified as a contract security consultant who'd been working with our facilities team for 3 weeks. Background check came back clean, but it appears his credentials were falsified. 3 weeks, Dominic said quietly. That's how long Crest was planning this. Morrison looked uncomfortable. Mr. Rinaldi, I want to assure you that Dalton takes security extremely seriously. This breach was sophisticated and well-funded, Dominic interrupted. I'm not blaming Dalton, but I am going to have my security team conduct an audit of your protocols and make recommendations. At my expense. Morrison blinked. That's generous, but not necessary. It's necessary, Dominic's tone left no room for argument. My interests and Miss Quinn's are aligned, and her brother's safety is a priority. So yes, you'll have a full security audit, upgraded protocols, and ongoing consultation. Consider it done. Morrison looked at me, clearly unsure how to respond to someone steamrolling him with help. I just shrugged. He does this. You'll get used to it. I see. Morrison gestured down the hall. Ryan's in my office. Take all the time you need. Ryan stood when I walked in, and the relief on his face nearly broke me. Harper, he crossed the room in 3 strides and hugged me hard. I'm okay. I promise I'm okay. I know. I held him tight. I know, but I'm allowed to be terrified anyway. When we pulled apart, his eyes went to Dominic standing in the doorway. Who's that? That's Dominic Rinaldi, my boss. The word felt wrong, but I didn't have a better one yet. Your boss came to check on me? Your sister works for me, Dominic said, stepping forward. Which means your safety is my concern. I apologize for the breach. It should never have happened. Ryan studied him with the sharp intelligence that had gotten him into Dalton in the first place. You're the reason someone tried to get into my room. Ryan, I started. No, it's a fair point, Dominic said. Yes, someone targeted you to hurt me through your sister. That was my fault for not anticipating how far he'd go. It won't happen again. How can you be sure? Because the man responsible is in federal custody facing 20 years in prison. And because I've assigned a security team to this campus for the rest of the semester. And because I've learned that people who matter to Harper matter to me, which means they're protected at the same level I protect myself. Ryan looked at me. Is he always like this? Yes, I said. Overwhelming and high-handed and completely serious about protection. But you trust him. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. I do. Ryan nodded slowly, then extended his hand to Dominic. Okay. Thank you for keeping my sister safe, and for whatever you're doing to keep me safe too. Dominic shook his hand. You're welcome. And Ryan? Your sister's been working herself to exhaustion to keep you here. She's brilliant, capable, and the reason I'm not in a lawsuit right now over a meeting conflict. She deserves to know you see that. Ryan flushed. I know, Harper, I know. I don't say it enough, but I know everything you've done for me. My eyes burned. You're my family. There's nothing I wouldn't do. I know. But maybe you don't have to do it all alone anymore? He glanced at Dominic. If you have backup now. The word hung in the air. Backup. Family. Partnership. Yeah, I said softly. Maybe I don't. We left Dalton an hour later, Ryan settled and safe, security protocols in place, and Dean Morrison looking vaguely steamrolled but grateful. In the car, Dominic's hand found mine. He's a good kid. He's the best. I looked at him. Thank you for coming. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. His thumb brushed my knuckles. Harper, I meant what I said. People who matter to you matter to me. That includes your brother, your life outside work, your priorities that have nothing to do with Rinaldi Holdings. All of it. That's a lot of access to give someone. That's what partnership means. He was quiet for a moment. Which brings me to something I need to ask you. My stomach flipped. What? What do you want your role to be? Not just in this us, but at Rinaldi Holdings. Because operations director was a cover story, but it doesn't have to be. You're wasted as an assistant, Harper. You always have been. I stared at him. You're offering me a real promotion. I'm offering you a real partnership. Operations director, senior advisor, strategic consultant. Whatever title makes sense. You'd work directly with me on acquisitions, negotiations, crisis management. The things you're already brilliant at, but officially, with compensation that reflects your value. You're doing this because we slept together. I'm doing this because you caught a security breach my expert missed, identified my antagonist in under an hour, and spotted a threat signal in real time during a high-stakes meeting. His voice was firm. The fact that we're also sleeping together is separate. I'd be offering you this role, even if we weren't. Would you? Yes. But I probably would have waited another month to get up the nerve. His mouth curved slightly. You're terrifying when you're competent. Despite everything, I almost smiled. I need to think about it. Good, you should, he squeezed my hand. But Harper, while you're thinking, remember something. You were never just an assistant. You were the person keeping my entire operation running smoothly while staying invisible because you thought that's what the job required. You don't have to be invisible anymore. What if I like being invisible sometimes? Then you get to choose when you're seen and when you're not. That's the point. His eyes met mine. You're in control now, of your career, your life, this thing between us. I'm just asking you to let me be part of it instead of an obstacle to it. The words settled into my chest, warm and terrifying and real. Okay, I whispered. Okay, you'll think about it, or okay, you're saying yes. Both. I turned to face him fully. I'll take the role, but I'm negotiating terms, real terms. Equity stake, decision-making authority, exit clause if this us falls apart and makes working together impossible. His smile was slow and satisfied. There's the woman who negotiated with me at gunpoint. I was wondering when she'd come back. She never left. She was just waiting to see if you'd actually follow through. And? You followed through. I leaned in, kissing him softly. So now you get to deal with me as a partner instead of an employee. Best deal I've ever made, he murmured against my lips. The car pulled up to his building, and we rode the elevator in charged silence. Inside the loft, he pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. Harper. Yeah? I'm in love with you. The words stopped my heart. You what? I'm in love with you, he repeated, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. I probably have been since you fixed the Castellano meeting and looked at me like it was the most obvious thing in the world. But I definitely knew it when I saw those surveillance photos and realized someone had been watching you, that the thought of you being hurt made me willing to burn everything down. Dominic, you don't have to say it back. I'm not asking for that. I just need you to know that this isn't casual for me. It's not strategy or protection or convenience. His hands framed my face. You're the reason I win. The reason I make better decisions. The reason I'm willing to choose principle over profit and people over reputation. You make me want to be the version of myself I always hoped I could be. My eyes were burning. That's a lot of pressure. It's not pressure, it's truth. He kissed me softly. And you can do whatever you want with it. Take the job and keep me at a distance. Walk away entirely. Stay and see where this goes. Whatever you choose, I'll respect it. I thought about the past week, the flowers, the surveillance, the fear and the fight and the feeling of finally being seen. I thought about Dominic giving up federal goodwill for my peace of mind. about him showing up at Dalton to check on my brother, about the way he'd looked at me in that car and said 8 months ago, your second day. I can't promise I won't screw this up, I said quietly. I can't promise I'm ready for everything this means. I can't promise I won't get scared and push you away or doubt everything when it gets hard. I don't need promises, Harper. I just need you to choose this. Choose us right now, today. And then tomorrow you can choose again. And the day after that. One choice at a time. What if I choose wrong? Then we figure it out together. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. That's what partners do. I took a shaky breath. Then I said the words I'd been too afraid to admit even to myself. I'm in love with you too. His eyes closed, relief and joy and something deeper flooding his features. Say it again. I'm in love with you. My hand slid into his hair. I'm terrified and overwhelmed and completely out of my depth. But I'm in love with you, and I want this. The job, the partnership, the complicated, messy reality of trying to build something with you. I want all of it. He kissed me then, deep and slow and thorough, like he was sealing a promise. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he said, "So we're doing this. We're doing this." I smiled against his mouth. God help us both. God help Julian Crest if he ever gets out of prison. I laughed, and it felt like freedom. 3 months later, I stood in my new office, the real one, with my name on the door and a title that actually reflected what I did, and looked out at the Manhattan skyline. Harper Quinn, Senior Strategic Advisor. It still felt surreal. My phone buzzed. Ryan. Got an A on the chem final. Thanks for the tutor you definitely didn't tell me Dominic paid for. I smiled and typed back. Proud of you. Also, he paid for it himself because he's obnoxiously generous. Get used to it, Ryan. Already am. He asked if I wanted to have dinner with you guys next week. That cool? My chest tightened. Very cool. I'll confirm and let you know. Another text, this time from Dominic. Board meeting wrapped early. Dinner tonight? Me. Your place or mine? Dominic. Ours. I stared at the word. Ours. 2 weeks ago, I'd moved into the Tribeca loft officially. My furniture mixed with his, my books on his shelves, my coffee in his kitchen. Our home. It still felt like something I'd dreamed up in a moment of desperate hope. But it was real. I was real. Seen, valued, irreplaceable. Not because Dominic had saved me or fixed me or given me a life I couldn't have built myself, but because he'd seen who I already was and made space for me to become even more. Miss Quinn? I turned. Owen stood in my doorway, tablet in hand. Owen, what can I do for you? Mr. Rinaldi asked me to brief you on the Castellano Group's expansion proposal. He wants your analysis before the partners' meeting Friday. Send me the files. I'll have notes to you by tomorrow. Owen nodded, but he didn't leave. Something else? I asked. I wanted to say. He paused, clearly uncomfortable. You were right. About the car in the surveillance photos. About Crest's signal at the restaurant. You see things the rest of us miss. You're good at different things, I said. Security systems, threat assessment, strategic protection. I'm good at patterns and people. That's why we make a good team. Something that might have been respect flickered across his face. Yes, we do. After he left, I sat at my desk and opened the Castellano files. This was my life now. Strategic analysis, high stakes, negotiations, partnership with the man I loved, and the company I'd helped build from the shadows. It wasn't perfect. Some of the other executives still looked at me like I'd slept my way into the role, despite the fact that I'd proven my value a dozen times over. The press had questions about my relationship with Dominic that we refused to answer. And some days, I still felt the weight of imposter syndrome pressing down, whispering that I didn't belong here. But then I'd remember Dominic's voice in the car. 8 months ago, your second day. I knew you'd be trouble. I'd remember catching the breach that Owen missed. I'd remember negotiating with a man who terrified most of Manhattan and walking away with everything I'd asked for. I'd remember that I'd earned this, not by being protected, not by being saved, but by being brilliant and brave and refusing to stay invisible. My office door opened, and Dominic walked in, loosening his tie. Meeting wrapped. 30 minutes early, he rounded my desk, pulling me to my feet and into his arms, which means I have 30 minutes to spend with my favorite strategic advisor before the next crisis hits. Only 30 minutes? I tilted my head back to look at him. You're getting slow in your old age. His laugh was low and warm. Careful, or I'll remind you exactly how not slow I am. Promises, promises. He kissed me then, soft and deep and full of everything we'd built together in 3 months of negotiating work and life and love in the spaces between. When we pulled apart, he said, Ryan texted me about dinner next week. He texted me too. I studied his face. You're nervous. I'm not nervous. You're something. He paused. I want him to like me, to approve, to think I'm good enough for his sister. My heart melted. Dominic Rinaldi, you're worried about impressing my teenage brother. He's important to you. That makes him important to me. His hands settled on my waist. And I want him to know I'm serious about this, about you, about being part of your life in every way that matters. I cupped his face. He already knows, but I'll make sure he understands you're not going anywhere. Good, he pulled me closer. Because I'm not. You're stuck with me, Harper Quinn, for as long as you'll have me. That's a long time. I'm counting on it. I kissed him again, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. Not invisible, not wasted potential. Not someone's assistant or someone's weakness or someone's anything. Just Harper. Seen, valued, irreplaceable. And finally, completely whole. 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 Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe so you don't miss the next Mafia love story. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Your feedback really helps me make these even better for you. Thank you for letting my stories keep you company. It truly means more than you know.